By day, she was the sister every parish admired, leading prayers, teaching children, and singing hymns that brought tears to eyes. But by night, she slipped off her habit, painted her lips red, and walked straight into the nightclub, where flashing lights and dangerous men were waiting. One mistake, and her holy secret would shatter forever. Sister Rebecca, young, brown-skinned, radiant, was the kind of woman whose very presence brought whispers of admiration. She led prayers with a soft voice that carried peace, taught catechism to children who clung to her every word, and sang Ave Maria with such devotion that the whole parish felt heaven closer. Mothers pointed her out as an example to their daughters. Men lowered their eyes respectfully in her presence, and the elders praised her piety. To the community, she was spotless, a holy sister with no blemish. Yet behind her rosary beads and calm smile, a storm was quietly gathering in her heart. In the silence of the convent, as candles burned low and prayers rose like incense, Rebecca's mind often wandered. She bowed her head but drifted elsewhere. The endless rhythm of bells, hymns, and silence felt like a cage. She envied the noise of the world outside, the laughter, the colors, the freedom. Sometimes, when the city lights glowed faintly in the distance, she felt something pull at her soul, something she could neither name nor silence. And slowly, without even knowing, restlessness began to take root deep inside her spirit. One evening, she was sent to deliver food to a poor family at the edge of town. On her way back, the narrow streets hummed with music and laughter spilling out of small shops. That was when she saw her. A young woman, leaning against a wall, gold earrings catching the light, red lips curved in a daring smile. Her name was Jessica. She looked at Rebecca's nun's habit and laughed softly, a laugh that seemed to carry secrets. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air like forbidden fruit. Rebecca should have turned away, but something inside her whispered to stay. Jessica's words were teasing, almost cruel, but strangely magnetic. "Do you ever get tired of hiding in that robe?" she asked. Rebecca stammered, trying to defend her vows, but Jessica only leaned closer, her eyes glimmering. "You'd be stunning in the real world," she said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Rebecca laughed nervously and hurried away, yet the words clung to her heart like a thorn. For nights after, she stood before her mirror in silence, imagining herself not as Sister Rebecca, but simply Rebecca, the woman beneath the veil. The first lie came quietly, like a shadow slipping in unnoticed. Rebecca told the Mother Superior she needed to stay longer for adoration. Instead, her trembling hand slipped the habit from her shoulders, revealing borrowed clothes hidden beneath. She tied a scarf loosely around her hair, applied a faint touch of powder Jessica had given her, and for the first time, she stepped into the world she was forbidden to know. Her heart pounded in her chest as she followed Jessica into the night, every step feeling like both freedom and sin. The nightclub was like another universe. Colored lights danced across the walls, music thundered through the air, and laughter echoed louder than any hymn she had ever sung. Rebecca felt her body sway with the rhythm, her lips parting in awe. For the first time in her life, she was not Sister Rebecca. She was simply Rebecca, the woman beneath the veil. Jessica's words were teasing, almost cruel, but strangely magnetic. "Do you ever get tired of hiding in that robe?" she asked. Rebecca stammered, trying to defend her vows, but Jessica only leaned closer, her eyes glimmering. "You'd be stunning in the real world," she said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Rebecca laughed nervously and hurried away, yet the words clung to her heart like a thorn. That was where she first met David. He was older, dressed in a sharp suit that glimmered under the dim lights, his smile smooth as velvet. His eyes lingered on Rebecca with an unsettling warmth. He ordered champagne without asking, sliding the glass toward her with confidence. "You are different," he murmured. Rebecca blushed, unsure whether to feel flattered or uneasy. His words made her feel seen, not as a nun, not as a servant of the church, but as a woman. That night, she returned to the convent with the tastes of champagne on her lips and David's card tucked secretly into her pocket. Soon the gifts began to come, a bracelet here, a bottle of perfume there. At first she refused them, but David was insistent. "You deserve more than prayers and silence," he said. His voice was intoxicating, and against her better judgment, she accepted. The bracelet glittered under her sleeve during Mass. The perfume lingered faintly when she knelt in prayer. But every gift came with invisible strings. David's presence grew heavier, his tone firmer, his eyes sharper. She began to realize that what had once felt like freedom was slowly binding her in chains of gold. In the convent, whispers began to rise. The Mother Superior noticed her distracted prayers, the way her eyes seemed to glaze over during hymns. A sister saw her slipping back in late one night, clutching her phone tightly. Rebecca smiled to cover the unease, but the walls around her holy life were beginning to crack. Some nights she pressed her rosary to her lips, begging for strength. But when the phone buzzed with David's name, she found herself answering. Her closest friend, Sister Grace, noticed the shadow that clung to her smile. Grace had shared prayers and tears with Rebecca for years, and she knew when something was wrong. One afternoon, after prayers, she touched her arm gently and whispered, "Rebecca, what is happening to you? Your eyes no longer shine with peace." Rebecca shook her head and laughed it off, claiming she was only tired. But Grace was not fooled. She saw the trembling in her hands, the hidden shame in her eyes, and her heart grew heavy with unspoken worry. David, meanwhile, had become a storm she could not escape. His charm gave way to possessiveness. He held her wrist too tightly, spoke with authority as if she belonged to him. Rebecca tried to pull away, but the thought of losing everything, the attention, the gifts, the taste of freedom, terrified her. At night, she cried quietly, pressing her face into her pillow so no one would hear. But still, when the next call came, she answered. The double life had sunk its claws too deep. One Sunday morning, she stood before the congregation, leading the choir with Ave Maria. Her voice soared beautifully, but hidden under her sleeves were faint bruises on her arm. A parishioner caught a glimpse, frowned, and whispered to another. The rumor spread like wildfire. "Something is wrong with Sister Rebecca," they murmured. She kept her face serene, her lips steady, but inside she felt the walls closing in. Her two worlds, the convent and the night, were colliding faster than she could control. Grace could no longer sit quietly. One evening, she followed Rebecca. She watched in horror as her friend, the sister admired by all, walked into a nightclub, laughing, dressed like a stranger. Her chest tightened as she realized the truth. She wanted to rush forward, to drag Rebecca away, but her feet stayed rooted in disbelief. The image of her holy friend dancing in sin burned into her memory. When Rebecca returned that night, Grace looked at her with tears in her eyes. But Rebecca could not bear to explain. David's mask finally slipped. He grew harsher, demanding more of her time, more of her soul. He gripped her wrist and whispered threats disguised as affection. "You belong to me," he hissed, and Rebecca's stomach turned. She thought of the convent, of the peace she once knew, and for the first time she wondered if she had walked too far into that darkness to ever return. Yet she felt trapped, caught in a snare woven of desire, fear, and shame. Late one night, Rebecca knelt in the chapel. The flickering candlelight glowed on her tear-streaked face as she pressed her rosary to her lips. "Lord, forgive me," she whispered, her voice breaking. She wanted to let go, to return to the woman the parish once admired. But then her phone buzzed in her pocket. David's name lit up the screen, pulling her back into the web. With trembling hands, she stared at it, torn between answering and throwing it away. The double life had reached its breaking point, and the question lingered heavy in the silence.